Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. Welcome to Tonight in Canada, the final broadcast of the year. Folks, that's not very bad news because there's good news attached to that. As always, we here at Campaign for America always have good news. The good news is we have combined the Tonight in America broadcast with the Tonight in Canada broadcast. And beginning January, that very first week, I believe on January 5th, you're going to see a brand new broadcast that brings America and Canada together called This Week in North America. And I've got to tell you, folks, I have heard, I've heard and I've learned that some of the people, at least the Democrat Party in this country, are not very happy with the unity that is beginning to surface here in the United States with our Canadian neighbors. And I'm absolutely sure that some of the Canadian Parliament members are not very happy. And I've said all along, folks, when we unite and we do things within the framework of the law, they fear us. We don't fear them. They fear us. And they fear us mostly when we're doing things within the framework of the law. So we need to keep that in mind. And again, I will forever say this to my last breath. If it wasn't for the Freedom Convoy in Canada, we probably would not have been as successful as we are in our fight for freedom and liberty, not only in Canada, but here in the United States and other free countries around the world. Folks, I'm going to get right to it. We've got a lot to report to you tonight. I wanted to make sure that our year-end message would be me speaking with you and sharing with you where we were, where we are, and where we're headed. There's a lot that I certainly don't have room to share with you with, but I'm going to give you a bit of a summary. Now, to begin with, yes, indeed, Campaign for America. We are the only live streaming broadcast throughout the entire United States of America that have been addressing the issues that are affecting the Canadian people. And the reason why we took up that cause is, number one, America has always been in the forefront of fighting for freedom and liberty. And frankly, our country dropped the ball when it came to Canada. All the focus for many, many years, including tonight, by the way, is on the southern border. A border completely out of control, a border that's going to open up widely in the next few days, where we have no doubt terrorist operatives coming in, criminals coming in. This is what the Democrat Party has done to this country. But there's enough attention that many organizations in America are giving the southern border. Not that we're neglecting it, but we here at Campaign for America have decided to become proactive and focus all of our attention on one border. And it isn't the southern border, it is the northern border. Why? Because we simply don't want to see the people of Canada become enslaved to their government as the people of China have. And we also recognize the fact that there's things that could creep up on the United States if we don't help our neighbors north of us. And we're going to be going over some of those things tonight. But let me just make one thing clear. We will not turn our focus of attention. We will not turn our eyes away from the northern border. We have a lot of influence in this country. We got to thank God a good amount of political clout that the good Lord has enabled us to have in a good way. And I find now, just by getting out on the road, as you note, Natasha and I have been out pretty active over the past week or so, visiting different organizations. And we put just on Facebook and some other social media platforms the other day that we were at the Clifton, New Jersey GOP club meeting and had the opportunity to sit down with a number of people involved in the Republican Party who have influence in their neighborhoods and share with them what's going on in Canada. So we're going to start in January, by the way, of 2023. We're going to start visiting a lot of these local organizations and not only address some of the problems we're facing here in the United States, but we feel compelled to let them know what's going on in Canada. And we'll talk more about that later on as we move forward. But we've been very successful. Campaign for America has been very, very successful because of you. We could not do this alone. Your prayers, your financial support, some of you who we've become very closely friendly with, putting your hand to the plow, and for what cause? For the cause of freedom and liberty. So that we've made significant progress, both here and in Canada, in heightening public awareness of the many challenges the citizens of the United States of America and Canada are facing regarding what? regarding government overreach, regarding government policies that are encroaching on our freedoms, our liberties, and our individual rights. And we believe that it is no coincidence that Canada and the United States are the primary targets of the Chinese Communist Party, of the WEF, and of the United Nations, which, by the way, all three of those organizations should be, and hopefully in our lifetime, as long as we keep it up, be sent to the ash bin of history. They are evil, period. And I know that they don't like the idea of whether we're Canadians or Americans or free people anywhere on this planet. They don't like to see these protests. They don't like to see us working within the framework of our laws. They don't like us, period. Why? Because we are slowly, believe me, folks, slowly taking their power away. Now, it may not seem that way because all we see and hear on broadcasts across the United States, and I'm sure across Canada, where your broadcasting, I understand, is controlled by the government, all we hear is the bad news, that they, meaning the WEF, the UN, the Chinese Communist Party, all this day in and day out, all we hear is the bad news. We don't hear any of the good news. Why? They don't want us to hear the good news. But now we have what is called the internet. We have live streaming. We can get to you probably faster than any network. And so the good news is there's a lot of good news. So that's why we're here. And I'm going to share some of that with you this evening. So they're beginning to realize that they got some serious problems ahead of them. And I'll tell you, folks, what happens with all power brokers, I've seen this in politics. There are politicians who will be allies of each other, right? But as soon as one politician has reason to believe the guy that he or she supported is going to have more power than them, they turn on each other. That's what they do. They turn on each other. They are going to commit political suicide as we continue the road that we are walking down. It is up to us. It is up to we, the people, not to fall into that trap where we're all in competition with each other. I'm competing with this group. I'm competing with that group, and on and on and on. We've got to come together, and we are. I have been in touch with a number of Canadian broadcasters, if you will. As recent as today, we've been talking, and we're going to be working with each other to live stream all of the Campaign for America broadcasts and others, not only across North America, but around the world. What do you think of that, folks? Don't you think somebody in the Canadian Parliament is thinking, uh-oh? I know they are here in the United States thinking, uh-oh, and they got their uh-oh served to them when we took over the House of Representatives. Next stop, state assemblies, state senates, the governorship of each of our state, and then the presidency of the United States. That's all the good news, folks. That is good news. Now, let's talk about the United States for a minute. And I'm going to talk about USA and Canada because any issues we have here seem to be mirroring the issues there in Canada. That's why I say it is no coincidence that Canada and the United States seem to have been put in the same target, if you could, of those who are trying to disrupt freedom and liberty around the world. Because the American people and the Canadian people truly are, without a doubt, the strength of this planet when it comes to freedom and liberty. And nobody, listen to me, WEF supporters, listen to me, United Nations, that is very divided as NATO is, and listen to me, the Chinese Communist Party, you're not going to break us. It's not going to happen. Never has in the past, has not today, and will not in the future. See these two flags? We're both together, and we're leading the charge for freedom and liberty. And anybody on the face of this earth, and I have heard from some of you from different countries, let me know. We'll get your flag and we'll put it up too. Because they, the enemies of freedom and liberty, they now have reason to fear. And we're going to make sure that they will stay afraid until we win and they lose. Now, during 2022, here in the United States, we literally went out on the road to dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds at this point, of civic and political organizations all around the country. Texas, Florida, Missouri, Mississippi, New Jersey, New York. I can name dozen states that we've been to. And what did we do? We went and we sought out local GOP organizations where people believed in freedom and liberty. Our veterans groups, civic associations that were fighting for freedom and liberty. We went and physically addressed them. And you know what we did, folks? We shared with them, all right? We shared with them some of the issues that are happening in the states right next to them. And we had the opportunity to share with many of them what's happening in Canada. And the key here, think about this now, is broadcasts like ours and organizations like ours and others, the key is education. We need to educate people as to what in the world is going on, not just around the world, around the country, but in their neighborhood, in their school districts. So we made it a point to go to local school board members' homes and meetings, and we began to share with people what is going on in their own backyard. And we encouraged them and really worked very hard at this. And it was probably the fruits of our labor, part of our labor. There were other groups involved. We're not just the only ones. But in some states like Florida, where I've seen nothing across the country, like parents coming together, industry workers, teachers, police officers, firefighters, every profession, people coming together in every single town in Florida saying, we've had it. And what did they do? They did it peacefully, and they educated themselves about the policies that the government was imposing upon them, and they put a stop to it. They put a stop to it. We've met with dozens, again, maybe hundreds of elected officials, and we shared with them our concerns about current public policies here in the United States that had to be addressed, that they were ignoring. So here's what we did. We not only went out and addressed a lot of these local organizations, because that's where it starts at the ground up. We established relationships, for example, with the Asian American Republican Coalition right here in New Jersey. Thousands and thousands of residents of India have moved to the state of New Jersey. And what we found out, folks, and this is very important for the people of Canada to kind of take hold of. What we found out is that when they were coming here, the Democrat Party actually was recruiting them within weeks, telling them how wonderful America is and how much they could get from the government. And the Democrat Party has done that for decades with minority communities, with Hispanic communities. And so what we decided to do was develop a relationship with this organization, with several local GOP clubs and our Native American organizations throughout the state. And that's going to go nationwide. Now, what do we plan to do? Educate, educate, educate. Absolutely educate. Now, I got an education from one of your residents this week. Won't mention his name. I would not do that unless I had his permission. He sent me a letter, and contained in that letter were the names of two Indigenous people from Canada that were war heroes, World War II heroes, and awarded medals by the United States of America. Now, we're going to be talking about that as we move forward with our broadcast. We need to know that, folks. We, the American people, need to know that. And I'm sure you would want to know what has happened with regard to Americans and Canadians fighting wars together. We weren't told these things. I didn't know that, folks. And I'm glad that gentleman sent me that, because it goes to show me how much that the people who are against freedom and liberty, how much they have censored from us or kept away from us. And that's why we need to stay together, and we can overcome this. So it's starting on a local level. And come 2023, we got the plans, we got the programs. We're going to just share it with all of you in Canada, and we're going to share it with anybody who wants it around the world. What we're doing in America, you could do in Canada. Because what you're doing in Canada, I pray to God we're learning to do that in America, and that is peacefully protest, peacefully. And so see how together we're beginning to get intertwined. All right, here's the issues here in the United States that are on the dinner table of most Americans. The Second Amendment. The United States Supreme Court upheld the Second Amendment. They tried to grab guns all over the country in every state. We got governors all over resisting, sheriff's officers resisting, a lot of resistance. There are laws being passed by some state legislatures before they're given their slips to go on unemployment. They're going to pass some laws. They'll be challenged in court. They will lose. And when we take control, we're going to see these laws, these benefits, if you will, or these rights restored. But we're not giving up. We are not giving up. Number one, the Second Amendment is non-negotiable. It is a constitutional right of the American people upheld by the United States Supreme Court. COVID-19 shutdowns. I don't think you'll ever see that in this country again. Right now, the United States Congress, the new one, is working on getting subpoenas to Dr. Fauci and some others who have been supporting everything he has said. And I really believe this at the end of the day, that some people are going to be going to jail, and maybe him. Now we find out today that there's possibly some connection with biolabs as to what was going on with some sort of biolabs in China, and something leaked out. I mean, all this information was out there. All of it was out there. Why was it kept from us? Because it didn't fit the narrative of those who hate freedom and liberty. But because of you, the supporters of freedom and liberty, no matter where you are, have enabled those of us who have these airwaves, whether it be Campaign for America, whether it be any of the broadcasters you have in Canada or around the world, we've been able to get this information out. And what's happening is public awareness is now being heightened, and questions are being asked. How is it that live streamers or live stream broadcasts have this information and the media don't have it? Well, maybe the answer is the media has it, and they've been bought and paid off by the people that are in power at the moment. But the people who are in power at the moment, well, their 15 minutes is going to be up real soon. We know it's going to be up in the United States, and believe me, it's going to be up in Canada. It's going to happen, folks. Believe me. Look, at a lot of people have said to me that, well, you know, it's a slow process. It's frustrating. Sure, it is. It's frustrating. Sure, it's slow. These things don't get conquered overnight. But I always remind people about a man that went up to President Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president of the United States. Man, did he have problems or not? The Civil War. And he was trying to introduce policies to end slavery, policies to end the war, on and on and on. A man goes up to him and says, Mr. President, I got to tell you, you're walking real slowly on these issues. He looked at that guy and he said, that's right. I may be walking slowly, but I'm always walking forward. What do you think of that? That's you, folks, and that's me, and that's all of us fighting for freedom and liberty. Maybe a slow process, but we're walking forward. And you know why we're walking slowly and forward? Because the good Lord is guiding us. He doesn't rush when it comes to anything, especially when it comes to the destiny of nations. And by the way, your destiny in Canada, the destiny of your children and grandchildren, as well as here in America, and all of those countries around the world where people are fighting for liberty and freedom, your destiny is to be free, not to be enslaved, to be free. You look at the entire history of the Bible, and it started off with people being enslaved, whether it be the sin, the Egyptians, or this or that. And at the end of each day, it was all about freedom. If you think God is going to allow some tyrant, whether his name be Biden or Trudeau or Xi of China, if you think God is going to allow those guys to get away with taking his gifts of freedom and liberty away from us, well, you're wrong. Because things are going to begin to unfold. It'll be a tough fight. But you know what? They lose, we win. The crime surge in America, bail reform, we've been fighting that since the Democrats came into office. Well, now the Democrats are crying for more police, more money, more aid. Why? We said this on this broadcast months ago. As soon as the crime surge gets into their neighborhoods, into the neighborhoods of the individuals who pass laws to let criminals out on the street, they're going to need all the help they could. Well, you know what? You don't have the cops to get into your neighborhood. So what are you going to do? I want to know what Mr. and Mrs. Democrat who supports gun control are going to do when some of these gangs break into the front door of their home. What are you going to do? You're going to grab a butter knife? You see, folks, when it hits them, it's going to hit hard. And unfortunately, and sadly to say, more people are going to get hurt, and I hope not killed. And I don't wish this on anybody. I've seen crime my whole life. It's not pretty. But how dare they pass laws that will affect us and not them? Well, criminals don't care where these laws are prohibited or where these laws are made. They're going to come to a neighborhood near you, Mr. and Mrs. Democrat. And members of the Canadian Parliament understand this. You may feel protected now by a guy named Trudeau. But guess what? Pretty soon, he's not going to be protected by the people protecting him, because the dominoes are going to fall. We see it all over the world. All these uprisings, folks. You haven't heard the half of it. Venezuela, Brazil, South America, Germany, Italy, for goodness sakes. I mean, Iran. I mean, even China. I mean, we don't want it to come to that. We made it very clear here in the United States, we don't want to see violence. We're trying to do our part in keeping the lid on a steam pot that's ready to explode. And once it explodes, it's going to be very difficult to put the lid back on that pot. Same thing with Canada. Trudeau and the members of Parliament, and some of you who are watching from the Parliament and the Congress, you should thank God Almighty that it was the Freedom Convoy, the goodness and the wonderful, wonderful demonstration of faith and trust in the people of Canada that protested. Because if any of the protesters of this country were in your country and did what they did to police stations here and buildings and cops, I got to tell you something. You would have been running away with your tail between your legs. It's innocent to use it. I'm sorry. It's simple and easy to use excessive force on good people. Look, I'm not saying there was people in the crowd that didn't do things they shouldn't do. That's right. But you don't do the things the Canadian police did to those people. You don't. And by the way, you've been universally condemned for that. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But we've been over that, haven't we? So here in America, we've been addressing crime and police issues, etc. The Chinese communists that are infiltrating our political institutions and religious institutions and educational institutions and corporate institutions. It's happening in Canada. Think about it, folks. What's happening here mirrors what's happening there. The woke agenda in the military, the woke agenda in our elementary schools, all the way up to universities, violation of constitutional rights, and of course, the weaponizing of the Department of Justice and the DOJ. Now, I've been calling for a long time for FBI agents on the streets who know what's going on at headquarters in DC to become a whistleblower. You'll be protected. Turn these people in before you go down on that sinking ship. And just the other night, for the first time on one of our major news media outlets, I heard somebody say the same thing. It's time to stand up, to speak out, and to bury these people politically to a point where they're going to lose their jobs and maybe some go to jail. Don't be afraid of them. Because I've got to tell you, folks, if you don't think they're not afraid of you, you're wrong. They are. They're not going to show it. Well, neither are we. So with relation to these issues that I just went over with you, we've highlighted several political candidates here in the United States on our broadcast. We visited many of them. And guess where we started, folks? School boards, school board level. When we were in Clifton the other night, they got a Republican elected to the school board. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis supported school board members all over the state and swept that state from north to south, from east to west, just swept out liberals and Democrats and brought in conservatives and Republicans all across America. We've won several Supreme Court decisions, the right to life, the Second Amendment, religious freedoms, and we returned the House of Representatives back to the people. Now that was a lot of hard work. That was success. Not just because of us on this broadcast, but because of the thousands of people that are doing what we're doing. There are some other broadcasts in the United States like ours that are focused on specifically what's happening in each state. Ours is much bigger and wider when it comes to national and international issues, but collectively, look what we've managed to do. Why? Because, you know the saying, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the oil? Well, we got a lot of squeaking wheels now in America. And we have a lot of people who are jumping on board and saying, I've had it. We're going to do what we could. Now, we kind of can't keep up with the invitations from political leaders around the country who want us to come and talk. And also presidents and chairs of political organizations. We want you guys to come and talk to us. All they want, folks, all they want in this country, and I'm sure in Canada, is unity. Unity. Let's get it together, folks. And this example of Canada and the United States coming together is really phenomenal. And like I shared with you, I'm getting emails, not many, but a few here and there. Switzerland, South Africa, Germany, Lithuania, Sweden, Finland. I'm getting emails from people that want to know what they can do to help. Well, I want to know what we can do to help you. And we will. So now, all this is going on with regard to our domestic issues. Now, let's get to the foreign policy issues. And this is where Canada comes in. We have real national security concerns regarding the Canadian government. And here's what they are, folks. With regard to Canada, I got to tell you, we have and we will continue to bring to our citizens. Now, that's an important fact, to our citizens from a local level to a federal level and our political leaders throughout the nation on all levels of government, information related to critical legislative actions that are being taken by the Canadian Parliament. C11, it is the talk of the town here in many, many cities across America. In fact, I've got to tell you, I didn't realize how many people in this country were aware of what's going on with that C11. And then the Bill 100, the prosecution and the persecution of religious leaders by the Canadian government, the violations of civil rights of its citizens, and other policies that, in our view, are giving birth to what? And this is what is really rubbing and opening up the ears and eyes and now the mouths of our political leaders, giving birth to the ideologies that mirrored those of the Chinese Communist Party, Stalin, Marx, and Lenin. That is the theme. That is the message that we're bringing across this country with regard to Canada. And it is beginning to take some grip. You know, it's beginning to resonate with people because we're beginning to realize that, you know what, this fight for freedom and liberty is not only here in America, it's all over. But the fact that the Canadian people are now watching their rights just get chipped away, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when all the rights are gone? Well, it's not going to happen because it's simply, I'll tell you what, the people of Canada won't allow it to happen, and the people in the United States are going to be speaking up very loud with regard to what's going on. Now, what do we do? All right. Well, let's first talk about C11. All right. We know, and we've named it the 21st century Berlin Wall. Remember the Berlin Wall that prevented people from East and West Germany to get back and forth? There was another wall. There was an electronic wall, and we had to set up Radio Free Europe because the Nazis and those who were opposed to freedom and liberty had jammed our transmissions into Europe where we could get real good and actionable, incredible, factual news to the people. So now Canada wants to do the same thing, right? To those of the Canadian Parliament again and Trudeau, you guys can't get around this. Come on. You think we're stupid? We're not. We're smarter than you think. So we've got mechanisms in place that I don't care if you put up a wall from Toronto to the moon, we're going to get around it. We're going to get around it. Why? Because Canadian and American ingenuity doesn't die at your doorstep. We're together. Remember that. Maybe you guys aren't together, but we are. So anyway, folks, so we got this electronic wall being built. They want to control the flow of information in and out of Canada, which is going to utterly fail. But let me just say one more thing about that. Those of the Canadian Broadcasting Company, all right, I don't know much about you other than I understand that you are funded by the government of Canada. Well, you're not journalists. You may think you are. You may really think you are, but you're not journalists. If any of you are watching, invite me to your broadcast. And please invite me. Look, I could sit here in the United States. We're doing it. I want to come on one of your CBC stations. I want to interview you. Do you have the guts and the courage to get that done? I want to interview you. And I want to talk to you about the impact that your government is having on the free world, let alone America. So if you're from the CBC, or if you're a journalist that has some courage and doesn't have a collar around your neck with Trudeau and his government pulling it, I'll accept the invitation. All right. How about we do that? Or why don't we do this? Why don't I invite you? I'll invite you to this broadcast. I don't need anybody's permission. I know you're probably going to have to, on bended knee, go to some politician that, freedom and liberty. We got to be careful with that guy down in North America or down in the United States. Be careful. He's not like-minded with us. Well, I'm not. But if you're true to good journalism, and you're true to your profession, and you're true to freedom and liberty, and believe your country's government is truly fighting for the rights of the people, give me a call. Anytime, any day, I'll cancel everything to be interviewed by you or for me to interview you. There's my open invitation to the CBC. So anyway, folks, getting back to what's going on with these bills. So we've got Bill 100, C11, and others coming up. Some are going to be passed. Well, It'll be temporary, folks. Believe me, they'll be passed. And when the ship begins to sink, you're going to see people jump ship. They're going to turn on each other. They always do. And then things will come back relatively normal. It'll take time, though. Now, with regard to the bills that they're looking to pass, all right, what can the United States do? Well, to begin with, folks, we're getting the word out in the United States that this legislation is tantamount to policies enacted by the Chinese Communist Party to control the people of China. In this case, to control the people of Canada. To have a free nation on our border, on the border of the United States of America, to have a nation that will go so far as to pass legislation hindering the rights and taking away the rights of the people, well, that's a bridge too far for me. And I got to tell you, folks, in our view, and we've said it all along, and we're going to try to prove it to the United States Congress, that the Canadian Parliament has become a national security threat to the United States of America. Now, regarding religious freedom, we've contacted all 50 United States legislatures, making them aware of the arrest of the religious leaders in Canada on charges that we have found to be in violation of their Charter of Rights, and pretty much more important, the fact that those principles in the Charter of Rights and the rights of the people, they have been historically protected and supported and advanced by the United States of America. So as we have an obligation to fight for freedom and liberty for people around the world, we have a solemn obligation to stand up for the people of Canada, since they happen to be on our border. So each state legislature received, as many of you know, a copy of the Ohio State Legislature's resolution urging the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom to take whatever action necessary to address and rectify the situation described in the resolution, which is what? Well, described in the resolution are the religious violations of religious freedoms in Canada, including the arrest of your pastors. So we're going to be continuing to urge that they be put on the religious watch list. And in my view, I really believe there's a list out there that would certainly, and hopefully will have the name of Justin Trudeau on it. And I'll qualify that in a minute, because I got some quotes from leaders around the world regarding him. So we sent our letters, we sent our information to all 50 state legislatures, and let's see what happens. But they're all aware of it now. And we're not going to stop. We are not going to stop, folks. Now, listen to this. And many of you may not know this, many of you may, but I know many of the people we sent these, let's say, documents to didn't know, especially our political leaders. So here is the following world leaders who have spoken up with regard to the situation in Canada, and the list is growing. UK MP Marcus Fry accuses Canadian government of authoritarian measures. US Senator Marsha Blackburn accuses Trudeau of abusing his power. All public, by the way, folks. Investor and author Robert Kozonki, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, says he stands with freedom fighters. Author Douglas Murray says all UK parties should unite to condemn Trudeau. French journalist Francis Ruffian says Trudeau's liberalism is authoritarian. Brazilian politician and former attorney general accuses Trudeau of dictatorship. Dutch singer Tom de Sasa blasts horrible Trudeau. Independent Croatian MEP misleads Kalakos accused Trudeau of dictatorship of the worst kind during the prime minister's trip to Brussels. Christine Anderson, who we all know, she's a member of the European Parliament. She made it very clear that Trudeau is a disgrace for any democracy. U.S. Missouri Republican Josh Hawley asked his country's Commission on International Freedom, Religious Freedom, to consider putting Canada on that special watch list. Well, folks, I could go on and on and on. That list is long and it is growing. So, Mr. Trudeau, if you're listening, or more so, if your supporters in Parliament are listening, your days are numbered. Your days are numbered. You've lost the respect. You've lost the real true respect of people around the world. And I'm not just talking about the people. I'm talking about leaders. They simply have no use for you. No use for you. How do you like that legacy? A prime minister, a president, whoever, they don't have any use for you. So you guys are going down the tubes politically. So that in an effort to heighten public awareness in the United States regarding what's unfolding in Canada, we launched a research project. Campaign for America launched a research project called Project Maple Leaf. Now, I'm pleased to tell you that the project will be completed next month, and we're going to shape it, put it together, and get it to hopefully every member of the United States Congress. It'll take a little time for us to get it there, but we're going to get it there. And it's going to outline, it's going to summarize everything that the Parliament in Canada has been doing to the people of Canada and how it's compared to what President Xi is doing to the people in China. And as I said over and over again, we cannot, and we would never think of interfering with a foreign country's government. We can't do that. In fact, I think it's illegal, frankly. So we don't do those things. But we could certainly educate people. We could certainly educate our lawmakers and urge our lawmakers to do a few things. Like maybe sanctions on Trudeau, sanctions individually on members of parliament who we hope we can prove beyond a doubt that they are either in bed or mirroring the Chinese Communist Party, which is a true threat, in our view, to the United States of America. And it's not only for those men and women in parliament that are leaning left and towards China, it's for Congress people here in the United States, politicians. My goodness, we had one, I think, congressman, he was literally physically in bed with a Chinese operative. How close are we going to get? But that's what's going on. But Canada, the Canadian Parliament's done a lot of damage, not to the people, to themselves. So those are the things we're going to be advancing next year. We're going to be on the road. We're going to be sharing with people all of the things and much, much more, which we have shared with you tonight with regard to Canada. And it's going to be a nice package called Project Maple Leaf. And it's going to be all factual. Everything we have is already in the public domain. What we did was connect dots, put pieces of intelligence and open source intelligence and information together and said, wow, look at this. And then we'll take it from there. But we're not going to give up. And which is most important, folks, is to continue to pray. Look, I don't shy away from that. We just got to continue to pray for God's guidance and what God is doing with regard to helping us do what we're doing. So let's keep that in mind, folks, all right? Prayer is important. Now, a couple of other things. When it comes to the Indigenous people of Canada and the American Indians, we're going to be working closely and do the best we could to help them, because there's a lot of history there, as I said earlier, with regard to 2 Canadian war heroes that the United States of America gave medals to. Don't you think we should have known about that? You know, I mean, where's that piece of history? But you see, all this is a lot of work, but we're going to get it done. You know, we got good teams of people working together. We're going to get it done. So my point is, we're discovering things that were hidden. We're discovering things that the governments of the United States and the Canadian Parliament and perhaps others didn't think we would find or we wouldn't pay attention to. But now we are. That's why they're afraid. Because all roads, folks, all roads lead to the Canadian Parliament in this case. All roads lead to the United States Congress in this case. So when they start seeing what's headed their way, you know, the flood of truth, they're going to be running out the back doors. They're going to be turning on each other. We just got to keep up the pressure. And listen, publicly, they may just dismiss us. But let me tell you something, folks. Privately, they're not dismissing anything. They see a world being turned upside down and inside out because of their actions. And when I hear people say, well, the WEF is too big, the World Health Organization is too big, the UN is too big. Folks, let me ask you a question. They're only as big as we allow them to be. I don't care if they have all the members in a particular country. They're not as big as we are. And they know that. You know, we've got reports where they've tried to hold meetings in certain cities here in the States and they failed. Things that not going to be advertised, not going to be talked about. And just through the aging process, if you will, of the human being, this guy Schwab, look at him. Yeah, look at him. You know, he's an elderly fellow. How long is he going to last, his health? George Soros? Well, you might say, but there's somebody else that's going to pick up after them. Now, the only thing that's going to happen, folks, is, The ideology's brought down, but they've been around for a long time. And all we hear is that, well, they're progressing. They're buying up farmland. They're buying up oil fields. They're doing this. They're doing that. Folks, I got news for you. Once they start encroaching, listen to me now, encroaching on the Chinese Communist Party, once they start crossing a line with Vladimir Putin, once they start crossing a line with the United States Congress now, and how strong that's going to get, and the same thing's going to happen in Canada, the pushback is going to be tremendous. The people in these foreign countries are just not rising up against their governments. They're rising up against the WEF. They're rising up against the United Nations, which I've said all along should be thrown out of New York City. They're useless. They're just a waste of time. Maybe one day that'll happen. But just know this, you have the power. You have the power. We, the people, have the power. And that's what we got to start thinking about, the positive, not the negative. You know what I do when I get negative stuff? Delete, 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 delete. I want to see the positive stuff. And that's what we're doing on this broadcast, and I know others in your country. So that's the direction we're going in. And finally, with regard to something that is definitely going to affect both our countries, and we're now beginning to pick up a little bit more aggressively on the issue of the war in Russia and Ukraine. Now, as you know, today, I think we tweeted something out. The U.S. government decides that we're going to give Ukraine some weapons that could now be used to pretty much attack Russia. I'm talking about their motherland. I've been against that. I think that's the most idiotic, ridiculous, asinine thought in anybody's mind to drop a bomb in Russia, whether it be St. Petersburg, Moscow. You got to be out of your mind to even think that. And so I've asked the same question I know my buddy Tucker Carlson has and others have. What if there were 100,000 Russian troops on the U.S.-Mexican border? What do you think the U.S. response would be? What do you think the U.S. response would be if some lunatic, all right, from Russia decided to bomb a city in the United States? What do you think we would do? I mean, under Biden, we'd probably, deny it ever happened. But I'm really serious about this. What would the U.S. response be? Think about what Putin's response is going to be if a bomb or a missile is launched and ends up on the Russian motherland. And by the way, I understand some of those missiles that Ukraine now has the letters USA on them. We better be ready, folks. I've told the people here in America, we better be ready for a ground war. And once that happens, well, I don't know. I hope it doesn't. Vietnam all over again. We're doing our best to prevent this from happening. And the Canadian people, you can be well sure that if it happens under a Biden administration, you might see your prime minister throw his hat in the ring. Believe me. But we could stop it now. Lessons learned from Vietnam. We could stop it. And I'm glad to hear that the Republicans that are taking Congress over in January are beginning to think about stopping the aid to Ukraine. I don't support, never will support the killing of innocent people in war. To see civilians get killed and blown up, it's abhorrent, and that is tragic. And when it comes to things like that, the Russian military should be punished. But I don't like the idea that we're involved in this, that we're feeding weapons that are just escalating the war. When a long time ago we could have sat down and talked. Putin already has made some overtures about let's sitting down and talking, and maybe we don't like what he's saying publicly, but once you get in a room, I've experienced that. Publicly, you're saying this, saying that, but you get in a quiet room with each other, you start talking. But we got very incompetent people in the United States of America, very incompetent in office, from the White House to many in the Senate and Congress. They don't know what they're doing. But they're there because there were millions of American people who put them there. Congress, Senate, President, whatever. Now they regret it. Buyer's remorse, right? But at the end of the day, it's us. See this? We are together in the fight for freedom and liberty. Come next year, January 5th, this week in North America, we're going to have 2 segments the American segment and a Canadian segment, where we'll have an American discussing some of the issues that are affecting our country, which certainly overlap yours. And then we're going to have a Canadian on who's going to be discussing the issues that are affecting Canada. And we're going to meld them together. And we're going to say, look at this. Look at this. And boy, those people who are opposed to what we're doing, their hair's going to be standing up. Believe me, they are. Because the worst nightmare of anybody involved in a war, and this is a war, folks, right? It's a political war. It's an ideological war. Anybody who is involved in that war, they don't want to see their opposition obtain allies. Look at this. Look at these allies. Put a few more flags. Look what's going to happen. So it's now what's become an American movement. The Canadian movement is now a North American movement, always peaceful, always within the framework of the law, and we win. So that's pretty much the report I have. Now, I'm going to try something here, folks. If you have any questions, all right, we've got a few more minutes. I'm ready, if I can see that. Okay. What's happening with Alan's petition? All right. Well, Alan, Alan, if you're watching, if you want to pop on a minute, you could just give us an update with the, hey, I've got nothing but good news. I'd rather you hear it from him. I didn't have a plan to come on, but if he's watching, come on, Alan. But Alan would need the link. Well, let's see here. I can't get him the link. Well, here's what we'll do, folks. How about this? We'll have Alan on, obviously, January 5th, and he'll give us an update. But I can tell you this. He has worked very, very hard with people, his wife and others, and they're doing a great job. Let me tell you, they're doing a great job. And I'll leave that to him. When can Canadians cross over into the States? Oh, Alan is coming, this says. Okay. I wonder, well, let's see. Does he have the link? If not, let me know and I get the link to you guys. What do you think of live broadcast? Listen, I hear, folks, January 8th. I hear this. I can't confirm this, but I think January 8th, they may take that restriction down, or it may have been moved. But I think January is the last month that those restrictions are up. I don't know that as fact, but I've heard that from credible sources. But this administration, you never know what they're going to do. Let's see. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you. Merry Christmas to all of you. Let's see. And what do we have here? Let Alan know his website doesn't appear when I try to access. Okay. Folks, let me do something here, if you don't mind. Hold on, folks. Well, we don't want that. We cancel that. Now, I'm going to get this here, do this, and I'm going to send Alan. Look at this, folks. This is what we do live on these broadcasts. Just stand by. You see me now, but I don't see you. So let me do this. Alan. Okay. And here is the link. Alan, I'm sending you the link. All right. If you could come on and give us an update. Okay. Send. Come on. Send. Come on there. Send. All right, send and disappears. There we go. All right, so I just sent Alan the link. Maybe we'll get him on. Now, folks, while we're waiting for Alan, in fact, his site is just put up there. Again, I'm going to ask you to pray for us, but also, and this is really important, I gave you a report tonight. We're successful because of you, and we're growing. I'm excited as to where we're headed. But please consider, if you can do this for us. All right. We had a good response a couple of weeks ago, and I'm grateful because now we're able to expand the way we want to. But if you could help us out with a donation, there's the website. You could go to it now, go to it after the broadcast. With the number of people watching, and I'll tell you, folks, thousands. If everyone sent just $1 or $2 in, I'll never have to ask again. Really, for the whole year, won't have to ask again. I'm not kidding, because that's how many people are watching. And so, like I've said, you don't have to send hundreds and thousands of dollars in. What bothers me is that those in opposition of us, that they're getting thousands of dollars, tens of thousands from corporate America, corporate Canada. People are just throwing thousands of dollars into their coffers, and that's how they get away with the things they're getting away with. But we can do it. We can do it. Small amounts of money adds up. Well, here's Alan. Alan, I want to welcome you. Alan, you are back by popular demand, and you're all the way down there. Now, hold on, Alan. I've got to figure out. Let's go here. Could we? There we go. Hello, Alan. We can't hear you.
Hold on.
All right, I hear you now, Alan.
There you go.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Alan, it is dark, but that's okay. Don't move anything around. You're on the air. Well, you're back by popular demand. Can you share with us what's going on with the Hague Project?
Yes. Well,
Speak up
the
there,
French
Alan.
version. Okay, let's see here. I said the French version of the is complete. Now it's in translation for the English. It will be completed by the new year, and then out gifts to yourself and other people.
Now, I know you didn't ask for it, but I will offer you the copy of Project Maple Leaf that we're giving to our congressional representatives. Would you be able to take that to The Hague with you?
That's perfect.
Hey, look at that.
Sorry. Yes, that's perfect. I will make sure to get that to, and we'll add it in.
Good, good. I mean, the more information you have, the merrier. Now, folks, do you have any questions for Alan? And then I'll begin to wrap it up. Yes, much better, Alan. That's good. Alan now we can now see Alan. Here's one. Where is Alan? Now, Alan, listen, thank you and your wife and all the people in your group that is working very, very hard. Tell us who your group is up there.
Well, there are
Not the
group.
names, not the names. The name of the group, Rights Watch or something like that.
It's Canadian Rights Watch. That's the that is handling the Hague inquiry. They do a lot with. You could go to their website. It's CanadianRightsWatch.com. They offer a group. They offer legal advice. All part of the. Of course, you have to become a member, but that they offer, of which myself, my wife, eldest son, is actually using their wellness. So it's something that we all happy that it's there.
Good.
Unfortunately, the health is probably just as bad as it is in the States. the health.
Now, Alan, you're getting broken up, so I'm going to have a final question for you. What about the unity flag? Is there a unity flag?
That I will be. There is a new unity flag available. The cost of it is $25. It's part of my profile picture on Facebook, and it's called. It's affiliated with the Global Unity Convoy 20, of which we will be giving updates on 5th of December. We'll be giving everyone an update and what's happening in the new year.
All right, Alan, you're cutting up, but we got most of it. So thanks for giving us the update. We'll have you back on the first week of January for an update. And we're looking forward to that new This Week in North America.
Thank you.
Thank you for responding as quick as you did. That was a pretty good response. Thank you. Take care. All right, folks. So we're gonna wrap it up tonight. We thank Alan for being here as fast as he has. So again, folks, www.campaignforamerica.com. We're not accepting corporate money, government money, any type of that money. We're not going to have our necks with a collar on it and a leash attached to it to somebody. The only people we want to be attached to are the good Lord and you. So if you could do that to help us out, I would appreciate it. So, all right. So that's it, folks. I thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm really excited over the way the good Lord has blessed us, and he's going to bless you. Don't do your best not to keep your head down. Keep it up. Be proud. See this? Be proud of your flag in Canada. We're proud of our flag in America. And we're also proud of your flag. And I know you're proud of this flag. And we're all proud and honored to be chosen by God in this time in the history of our countries to do what? To preserve the gifts of freedom and liberty he gave us for our children and grandchildren. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I might come on from time to time between now and the new year, but January 5th, this week in North America. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Thank you.